You can't tell yet, but this chest includes 6 different species, incredible figuring, and is missing a component for a hidden trick that I'm going to recreate. The documentation that was left claimed no artificial coloring, so that's healthier, I guess, and the option for moth insurance. Good on ya, Cavalier Corporation of Chattanooga. Under this chest was 70 years worth of bug and rodent detritus, so cleaning her up was step 1 before I can get a good look. We've got varied veneer patterns hidden under ambering finish, and they went with Newborn's First Dookie as a painted accent color. Lots of peeling veneer on top will have to be replaced. Let's start by removing the lock that has been sweating out ooze for a few decades. I can't resist a light sanding to see what we've got. A square of curly, burly stuff with a band of zebra wood, and flanked by what I thought was mahogany. I mean, wouldn't you say? The top veneer looks like mahogany too. Since this paint is likely from the 50s and I don't know what kind of mercury, lead, cyanide concoction was used, I'll don the mask to clean that up. It's common pine/fir under the paint as you would expect, and because I'll be repainting it, I'll use some filler on the dings and scratches. To remove the top veneer, I first came at it mechanically, pulled off this piece of trim, and then blasted it with 60 grit. This didn't take that much work because, from my research, veneers of this age are often very thin, like half as thick as what you can get from Woodcraft or Rockler. I put my #1 helper to work in applying finish, and here's where I started to get concerned about the color. That looks pretty yellow for a mahogany. Was it a deep-seated stain in the mahogany? Maybe it's actually a canary wood or something. I don't know, but I can't sand it back much more as there's already some worn spots right on the verge of peeking through. I'll just keep going for now. I'm making this for my neighbor, the same one that gave me that DeWalt sign. And he made a fantastic call in going with black for the painted sections instead of the original bile yellow. I'll paint now so I can get a crisp line whenever the top veneer goes on. I thought I was going to break that old piece of trim when I pulled it off, but it stayed together, so I'll blacken that as well while I have the paint out. For this veneer, in this direction, I can leave it as long as I want, because I can take a flush trim router and that right off. But the other side has this black part, so I won't be able to put a flush trim router along there. Same goes with the other side. So that just has to get cut perfect to begin with. I picked up a 2-foot by 8-foot mahogany veneer, which has been sitting on Woodcraft's shelf for quite some time. You can even see where the sticker prevented some sunlight color alteration. That's okay though, I only need a 4-foot section, so I'll use the part from inside the roll. Applying this peel and stick veneer was a bit of a show. I decided to only peel a little bit of it at first, get that stuck on, and then remove the rest of the backing as I laid it down. This turned out to be a struggle as parts of the backing paper wanted to get stuck in the part where the lid of the chest rolls over. I looked like a baby deer putting it on, but it worked. Trimming the excess with a router didn't go according to plan either, as the backing adhesive didn't want to cut nicely. Luckily, a slow sawing with an X-Acto knife worked perfectly. I was still holding out hope that finish would bring these colors together, but that wasn't the case, so I have a decision to make. After some deliberation, I chose C, try to change the color of the mahogany. So I made some test boards with various chemicals to try and match this color. Boiled linseed oil, wipe-on poly shellac, various stains and paints. And the thing that gets the closest is 2 tablespoons of water with some drops of yellow alcohol ink. I've got 2 drops, 3 drops, 5, 7, and 10 per 2 tablespoons of water. I think gets the closest color match. So I'm gonna make up a bigger batch of that ratio and apply that to the top. So after spreading this electric mixture all over the top, I ended up with this splotchy disaster. I thought maybe putting a top coat of finish would magically even it out. It did, kinda, but not enough. I do not like this. I think the dye differentially soaked in to the places where the pore spaces were more open, and it looks splotchy and terrible. Also, putting water on there bubbled up some parts of the veneer. I've got another veneer, so I'm going to take this one off and try again. But first I'm going to test some different coloring agents and see if we can get the top to match the sides. This time I'm going to go with shellac instead of water, and it looks like lemon is the best tint color. I'm hoping that because shellac has more body to it, that it will help homogenize the dye. And I'm going to do the finish work before I stick it down. I removed the old veneer with a heat gun and slowly pulled it back, which worked fine but left the adhesive behind. I tried scraping, I tried Goo Gone, but the only thing that worked was rubbing it back with my fingers. Removing all that glue took an entire day, and I still have dry and cracked thumbs. This second veneer went on better as I learned some techniques and used my head to steady the piece and worked it into place slowly. I'll then glue and nail on that piece of trim and the outside of the box is done. For the interior cedar, I'm just going to sand, as finish would probably negate the moth protection. Was that really a thing? Was thwarting off moths a big to-do back then? Someone older than me let me know in the comments. Now I'll get started on the missing floating box. I've got some cherry on hand that needs milled, but I'm going to do it in a different order than usual. I'll joint one thin edge and then rip it on the table saw. Nothing square yet. Back at the joiner, I'll clean up that ripped edge and joint both faces. Yep, both faces. I can do this because they don't have to be coplanar at this step, as I'm going to resaw. After getting that ripped in half, as long as I put the jointed face down as it goes through the planer, everything will work out. Those pieces can then all get ripped to their final width and have their miters cut. For the bottom of the box, I'm using this piece of OSB because I'll cover it up with a silky fabric. I'll be sure to get spray adhesive all the way to the edges, lay it on, and trim it to size. To close the miters around the box, I'm going to work one side at a time with a little wood glue and CA glue, then quickly spray activator and freeze it in place with a square. That gets glued and nailed to the silky OSB, and I've got a box. The lid hinge has a tab and a slot. The tab holds up the end of the box, and the slot holds up a pin. This way the box stays level when the lid is open and when it's closed. I'll mark where the pin needs to go, drill an 1/8 inch hole, and 5-minute epoxy in some metal rod that I've cut and polished. When working with quick curing epoxy, do a test fit right away so you can remove any screw-ups if need be. While I give that epoxy time to set up, I'll polish the brass on the lid liner as best I can and work on the lock. I read that parents used to jam these intentionally in the unlocked position, as a large number of children would inadvertently lock themselves inside the chest. I'll reapply the paraphernalia, burnish those miters, sand around the pegs, and clean up the glue seams before putting on finish. Last thing to do is touch up paint and take those slow panning B-roll shots. Thanks for watching.